Hello, mathematician. Today we are going to be working with decimal models. Make sure you have your materials ready. If you need to pause the video to go get your math journal and a pencil, please do so now. Today we are going to be representing decimals to the hundredth using models and money. We are also going to determine the decimal that a point represents on a number line. So let's have a quick review on what is a decimal. We know that decimals are numbers that are less than one whole and are written using a decimal point. Here we have our place value chart. To the left of our decimal, we have our whole numbers, and to the right of our decimal point, we have our decimal values. To the left, we have our ones, tens, hundreds, and you can continue on to the thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, and so on. And then to the right, one place to the right of the decimal point is the tenths place, which has a value of 1/10. Then two places to the right of the decimal, we have our hundredths place. Its value is 1/100th. Today we are going to be representing decimals using models. One model that we can use is our base 10 blocks, or sometimes they are referred to in this method as a decimal grid. Here we can see on our place value chart, we have the number 48 hundredths. When we read a decimal, we say the last place that the last digit is in. So this is 48, and then we say hundredths. So looking here at our models, there's two different ways that we can represent this with a model. We can start by representing our amount of tenths and our amount of hundredths and then putting that together. So here we have a decimal model that is broken up into 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 tenths. And then we have our hundredths model. We can see that it has 100 little squares. So because our number has 4 tenths, I have colored in 4 of the tenths and represented it as 4 tenths and then as a fraction 4 tenths. And then we have 8 little hundredths. So here I have marked 8 little hundredths on this decimal grid and written 8 hundredths and the fraction version 8 hundredths. And that equals 48 hundredths. 10, 20, 30, 40, then 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, and 48 hundredths. All right, well, let's give that a try. Taking a look here at our first question, we see a decimal model, and then it says, write the standard form of the decimal represented by the model above. Okay, our strategy is we want to label the model, and then we want to draw a place value chart and plug in our digits to know what the standard form of the decimal is. So taking a look here at my model, I could draw a quick sketch of this model by drawing 3 whole squares. And again, this is a quick sketch. Okay. And then I see that I have how many columns of 10? Full columns of 10. 1, 2. So I'm going to draw to show that I had 2 columns of 10. And then let's see how many little ones we have here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And these are not actually ones because we're looking at this as a decimal. These are hundredths. Each one of these little squares represents 100th. So these are actually 8 little hundredths. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's a quick sketch of this model that I can now label. So these represent wholes. I know that this represents a whole because it has all of the hundredths shaded in. The whole thing is shaded. And how many do we have? 1, 2, 3. So we have 3 whole. I'm going to mark that. 3 whole. So that is going to be our whole number. And then how many tenths did we have? Well, we had 10 and 10. So we had 2 tenths. So I'm going to mark that. 2 tenths. And then how many little hundredths did we have left over? We had 8. So I'm going to label that. So now I've labeled each part of this model. And so now I need to know, what number does this make? So I'm going to use my place value chart to help me with that. And so I'm just going to draw it to the hundreds place because this number is not very big as far as whole numbers go. Don't forget our decimal goes right there. All right. So now we just need to plug in what we have. Well, we have 3 wholes. And so that would go in our ones place. Decimal point. And then how many tenths did we have? We had 2. And then how many little hundredths? We had 8. And now we have our decimal number. So our number in standard form, read it with me, 3 and 28 hundredths. So let's write that as our final answer. 3 and 28 hundredths. Excellent job. Let's take a look at our next question. With this question, we are going to be modeling decimal numbers using a number line. It says, which point represents the decimal 85 hundredths? Well, the first thing that we want to do when we see a number line is we want to analyze the number line because we need to look closely and think and figure out what is our number line counting by? What are the intervals? And so looking here at this number line, the numbers that they do give us, I notice are in values of tenths. This is 2 tenths. This is 6 tenths. So the first thing that my brain is thinking of is, well, maybe it's counting by tenths. And so now what we want to do is try that out and see if that makes sense. Does each one of our interval tick marks count by tenths? So let's give it a try and see. So if this is 2 tenths, I wonder if this starts as 1 tenth because we have 0 here. So let's give it a try and see if it works. So we have 0, 1 tenth, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths, 5 tenths, 6 tenths, oh, it's looking good, 7 tenths, 8 tenths, 9 tenths. Well, does counting by tenths make sense here? It does. It lined up as we counted with the tenths that they gave us. So now that we know what our intervals are, we want to label each interval. And so for this strategy, we would do it right on our question using an annotation tool. Or you could draw it in your math journal if you're more comfortable with that. I'm going to show my work this time by doing it on my number line screen, on the screen. So I want to label each interval. So we have 1 tenth, 2 tenths is already written, 3 tenths, 4 tenths, 5 tenths, 6 tenths, 7 tenths, 8 tenths, oops, can't really see my decimal point, I'll put it right there, and 9 tenths. Okay, and so now we're trying to figure out which point represents 85 hundredths. Well, as we were writing our hundredths, we didn't write 85. Well, we were writing, our tenths intervals, we didn't write 85 hundredths. So we have to think about, what does 85 hundredths mean? Well, taking a look here at that 5, what that tells my brain is that is half of a new tenth. 5 would be half of a new tenth. So 5 would be halfway to a new tenth, and what would the new tenth be? The new tenth would be 9. So do we see a decimal point that is halfway between 8 tenths and then the new tenth, which would be 9 tenths? Well, I see 8 tenths is over here, and so is 9 tenths, and I do see a decimal point that is right halfway in between 8 tenths and 9 tenths. So P represents 85 hundredths. Excellent job. All right, let's try this question. True or false? Both models represent the decimal 3 and 60 hundredths. 3 and 60 hundredths. Well, the first thing that we want to do when we see a model, of course, is we want to analyze it, and then we want to label it. So taking a look here at this model, I notice that these models are each broken into 10. So that would represent tenths for decimals. There's 5 on top and 5 on bottom. So that's 10, so it would be tenths. I notice that 3 are shaded all the way in. So that represents a whole. So I have how many holes? 1 hole, 2 holes, 3 holes. And then how many tenths do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this represents 5 tenths. So now we have represented or labeled this decimal number. Let's see what decimal number our money represents. Well, our dollar bills are representing 1 whole. So how many do we have? 1, 2, 3. And then our quarters here represent our cents, or in this case, hundredths. Taking a look here at our money, how much is 2 quarters? If a quarter is 25, how much is 25 and 25? 50, very good. And remember, that's represented as a decimal, so it would be 50 hundredths is the same as 50 cents. So let's take a look at what our numbers represent. So our first model, if I drew my place value chart, and so I'm just going to do ones, tenths, and hundredths because our number's not very big. Our first number has how many holes shaded in? 3. Decimal point. And how many tenths did we say were shaded? 5 tenths. Okay. And then taking a look at our next model, I'm going to draw another quick place value chart. Decimal point. How many holes was represented by the dollar bills? 3. Decimal point. and then our number 50 hundredths. And so this is showing 50 hundredths. Can we put a 0 here? Yes, we can, to show that there aren't no hundredths. All right, so taking a look here, back at our question, it was true or false. Both models represent the decimal 3 and 60 hundredths. Do these models represent 3 and 60 hundredths? No, they were 50 hundredths. And so that would be false. It is false. All right, excellent work today, mathematicians. Now it's your turn to complete the remainder of the activities in this lesson model. Have a great day.